Let me first answer this question. Of course, I've come in a different capacity today, so I'll be talking about a different thing also. I've been part of the eGov projects now for about 10 years. In fact, the question that you asked is how this eSeva project actually started in Andhra Pradesh. Actually started in Visakhapatnam, to be very honest with you. I remember I was a municipal commissioner of India at the time, and the kind of questions that are being generally raised by citizens hanging around tax collector offices to even pay off their municipal bills and taking a whole lot of time for getting the basic clearances done, all these kind of issues which were there. And I mean, the country had not really seen much of, as far as the eGov projects were concerned, I mean, there were hardly any projects in the country. And the eGov, the Socarium, the project that we started in Visakhapatnam, it became precursor to the subsequent eSeva expansion across the state. It started with a very humble beginning, if I may use that word, because neither did we have the funds. I mean, we're talking about those 5 barriers. To my mind, fiscal barrier is sometimes one of the most important ones. Of course, it's not understood in totality that the kind of money that a eGov project eventually saves is much more than what we spend subsequently on some of those things. But initially, to begin with, you always will have problems in terms of the fiscal constraints. We had huge fiscal constraints in the municipal corporation. So we started that project as a very small project, which was I would say it was a complete private sector. I can't even call it public-private partnership because it was more of a private funding or a community funding of a kind of a eGov project. Everything was done through philanthropic kind of activities. I mean, people were doing the database development for us. We hired some unemployed youth to do that database development for us. The lease lines were not there at that time to a great extent, but the local cable operator, he came in from US with a lot of ideas, and he was the first one to give us a broadband line to connect us the various service centers. I can't call them service centers because we didn't have service centers at that time. It were actually banks. And we just taken a small counter in 15 banks in Vizag city to provide us some furniture and computers for doing these activities. The website was developed by an entrepreneur who just wanted to make name in the city, and for that particular work we gave him a small space in the website. So it was all done out of that, and it started with that kind of a beginning, but later on it got expanded into the entire state. It's doing wonderfully well. I mean, if you really ask me the principal reasons why it's been doing well, the eSeva project in Andhra Pradesh has been doing well primarily because the project has now achieved critical mass. It's become sustainable because it's been done through public-private partnerships. It was not done as a public effort. And whenever you involve individuals and bring in more and more stakeholders, the sustenance of such projects, even beyond the life of their own creators, would be high. So this is one of the principal reasons for this project. And of course, in Andhra Pradesh, our IT secretary is here. He would have explained in the previous session the kind of initiatives that have been done in this particular state. Today, my limited purpose here would be to give you the information regarding the ration card computerization project that has been done in this. It's very unique from the point of view that possibly this is one of the only projects right now in the country wherein biometrics have been extensively used for providing identities, unique identities to citizens. I should not do that, but let me hasten up to say that this is one of, to my mind, this would be the precursor to the national level ID project that's being talked about. And it would be very useful if I'm able to present this and give a brief insights into how biometrics can play a huge role in ensuring that citizen databases get purified. I would like to tell you that to have a good citizen database is, I would say, half the problem sorted out as far as eGov application is. Most of the problems that we encounter primarily because we don't have a proper database of the citizens. We don't know whether the benefits that are being passed on are going to the right citizens. We don't know whether those who deserve those benefits are being excluded in some of those applications. And another thing is to have a database which can be applied across departments in the state, instead of individual departments having their own databases. And when you apply this logic and take it to the national level, and you realize that the the presence of a good citizen database, to my mind, is the most primary thing in terms of developing any eGov applications. Now, not just the eGov applications, even the applications which require citizen interfaces in the private sector would all depend upon the kind of database that we have. In Andhra Pradesh, in the Civil Supplies Department, let me try and tell you that in the country, if you look at the mother database of citizens, I would think that it lies with the Civil Supplies Department, because they are the ones who are involved in the public distribution system. They are the ones who issue the ration cards, and therefore in Andhra Pradesh, if you look at it, the database, the Civil Supplies database, is being used as a mother database for all other departments, including the Rural Development Department, where they issue pensions, or the National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, where they issue job cards, or the Arogya program in the state, where the medical insurance is being given, where they give the medical insurance to the poor people. All these departments use this database, and to have a purified and a unique database was considered to be one of the most primary objectives when this project was started. At that time, the understanding was that in order to have this project doing well, you need to understand that there will be always problems of inclusion and exclusion. Inclusion is always going to be there. There are people who are going to get into the database even though they are not eligible. You may have people in multiple places, they are trying to get some bogus cards and postcards, and you'll always have problems of exclusion. To get all these issues sorted out, the state decided to use the biometrics as one of the tools to ensure that you have a pure database, a database that can be utilized not just by the state but also by the non-state players in future for mounting applications which can give citizens the kind of benefit that are required in a hassle-free environment. The choice of biometrics was quite obvious, but let me just try and tell you why the state chose a kind of biometrics for the activities that were done. I think, let me start from the last thing first. I can safely say that Andhra Pradesh should be the only state which would be having a database of about 5.5 crore citizens and their biometrics currently. I don't think any other country in the world would be having this big a database in terms of biometrics. We are the biggest repository of the biometric information of its citizens as far as my understanding goes. So why biometrics was chosen? I think the biometrics technology was chosen primarily to ensure that you get uniqueness around these databases. You don't have citizens around in multiple places. That was the basic objective. But the secondary objectives also were manifold. I mean, when you look at the national ID project, a lot of people are saying that it's not being done with a view to provide benefits. It's also being done as an internal security means. I mean, tomorrow you will require authentication for your citizens for doing anti-terror activities. You will have to get into place systems which ensure that you are able to authenticate and provide access control to individuals. That was also one of the secondary objectives why this biometric technology was chosen in this state. Now, I'm not here to tell you why a particular biometric technology is better than the other, but why the state of Andhra Pradesh chose iris as a biometric technology. Let me just quickly tell you the kind of exercise which went through. Now, this is what actually went through. Now, you have the various biometrics. They are on a grid here. You have on the top side, you have in the X you have the accuracy part of it, whether you have more accurate ones and you have the less accurate ones, and the Y grid you have the intrusion part of it, you have the less intrusive ones and the more intrusive ones. Now there are various options here. You look at voice and hand. These are all biometrics. Basically voice itself is quite unique to an individual, but it's slightly less accurate, and of course it's also less intrusive. You can do that as you want. You have the ones which are more accurate, less intrusive, and that's where iris fits the bill. I mean, it's definitely very accurate. At the same time, it's less intrusive in comparison to a DNA or a retina that you might do. Now, these are some of these evaluations. I will not go through this, but I think if you can look at it in terms of the false acceptance rate, it is in terms of a fingerprint, it is as high as 1 into a lakh, while in terms of the iris, it's about 12 lakh people to a count. I mean, that's the kind of reliability that this particular technology has. And in terms of stability, very stable, because this does not change over the life of an individual. Even fingerprints get modified. You can't, I mean, we have seen it in many projects in Andhra Pradesh. 15% of the individuals, their fingerprints change because they are into manual labor, and you're not able to even keep them stable over a lifetime. I'll not go through this, but practically there were problems with other biometrics, so the state chose iris as a biometric. Now this entire thing was understood to be with an idea that if the state can have a database with unique identity, it would allow the state to use this for various benefits. Now, this is how the iris technology was used. You have about 2,000 common service centers, computerized centers were opened all across the state. I mean, this process started in the year 2005, and the state is big. You have a whole lot of areas to cover. So about 2,000 photographic locations, the designated photographic locations were set up across the state. Individuals came to those centers. Not just the iris information, but their family photographs, on all of the salient information was recorded, and the cards were issued to these individuals. Now, when this entire process was started, I think one mistake that we possibly did, and where possibly other states can learn, was not to have set up a centralized architecture to issue these cards. I mean, had we done that, possibly at the time of enrollment itself, we would have arrived at the duplicates and removed those duplicates. Because it was impossible at that time to understand and envisage a system wherein you can have 1,800 centers connected across the state, in the remotest corners of the state. This entire architecture was decentralized, but still the whole data was available for aggregation, which has now been done. And the idea was to use iris as a technology to deduplicate and get the people who have the bogus and the duplicate cards. This entire process has now been completed. I mean, this couldn't have been possible if biometrics was not used. And now we've been able to integrate this entire database, which comprises of about 7 crore people across the state. We have about 7 crore people, and the information for all these 7 crore people have been recorded, captured, their photographs, their salient information, their demographic details, including the biometric, that's the iris. Now, based on this, the categorization has been done to improve upon this entire database, and based on the iris matches, cards have been categorized in various categories, where these are the cards which have been issued with the same photograph in different locations, something that would be very common across the state in most of the government programs. There were cases of manipulated photographs. The card being issued in the name of Sania Mirza, I think did a lot of rounds in the national newspapers, but it was only one of the many aberrations that were noticed in some of these cards. But all this wouldn't have been possible had we not used some kind of a biometric technology to get into these kind of collusions and these kind of duplications. Then we had various different kinds of categories as well, and even within the family, those kinds of things. Now, iris is very unique, so ultimately there's absolutely no possibility for an individual to have given his eyes into different locations and still get away with that. So all that information has now been captured. The idea is to purify this entire database. So that you have a unique database which can be utilized by multiple departments. And let me inform you that currently the state is right now going through an operation which can be equated to what you do during a census, where a complete door-to-door verification is now being done to purify this database based on the technical inputs that have been received through this kind of a deduplication arrangement. Now, we have already given it over to a company to get into this entire activity. They are also part of it, and I have also asked them to set up a stall so that the further details of this project can be given by them here. In addition to this entire process is now running into the kind of matches. I mean, if you really look at the number, it's about 6.26 quadrillion iris matches which will have to be done in this 60 days. And that's where iris scores over other technologies. I mean, the kind of deduplication that's required to be done, this kind of thing wouldn't have been possible in a fingerprint kind of a solution where you have 10 different fingers which have to be matched across the other 10 different fingers. I mean, all that wouldn't have been possible. Iris provides us ease in terms of deduplication, I would like to say that. Now, this entire information has now been put into a kind of a field verification format that is going across the state for verification. Now, once this entire verification is done, then the state intends to set up a centralized architecture. We intend to host this entire data onto a kind of a central server, which will be web-enabled, at the same time which will have access, which will give access to individuals or various government departments and even private sector who would like to make use of this data for various kinds of applications which can be mounted on it. And in future, we would be doing any further enrollment or any modification or any change or any migration onto this database through a centralized architecture which will have an automated 1:1 verification built into the system itself. Now, if it will be like this, I mean, you have the whole database with you. Let's say the anti-terrorist organization in the state catches hold of an individual and wants to verify the identity. Now, it will be difficult right now, but once the system is set up, they just need to bring that individual before an iris camera. The camera records his iris image and it transmits that information to the database, and in no time, we are stipulating about 5 minutes, including the travel time of the data and the processing and stuff like that. Including all that, within 5 minutes, you would come to know what exactly is the identity of this individual if he comes from Andhra Pradesh. This is the kind of the strength of this particular database. The idea is that 19 million citizens, about 9 crore people who are being enrolled in this entire exercise would provide a kind of a database which would be possibly useful for this country in terms of giving away the unique IDs that's being contemplated at the Government of India level. Now, this exactly is the way forward as far as this entire process. As I have told you, this year we are going ahead with the deduplication of this entire database right now. Next year possibly we'll be spending a lot of time on doing fresh enrollments. I mean, there are many individuals whose irises have not been captured. There are many individuals whose irises are now mashed, so they would need to give their irises again. All that process will start, and once we complete this entire thing, we are ready to leave that organization. The project has already reached a critical mass where it would be impossible for his successor, even if he wants to kind of jettison that particular project. I mean, that to my mind is the critical thing.
I had another question, and that was, now you obviously have another piece of this infrastructure. If I were to call that as master data, this is another piece of another critical piece of the infrastructure. I mean, other parts of the infrastructure, hardware, network, service centers. Now, would you think that this particular infrastructure needs to be leveraged by something like eSeva? Or do you think these, each of these applications continue to run with their own master data?
I mean, one good thing about Andhra Pradesh is that the moment this database was ready, I mean, I'm not saying this is a very pure database. I mean, I can say that it will be one of the purest databases maybe 3 months down the line, because the verification process is now about to get, it's already started, its next 3 months it's going to be completed. So, one thing about Andhra Pradesh is that even when the database was not clean, they have always used this database only. I mean, the pensions that have been given in the state, or the housing benefit that have been given in the state, or even the health insurance scheme that's been done in the state, and even the anti-terrorist organization, I mean, they have also taken this database, because there is no other parallel database which is as big as this particular database. So this is the master database, and once this database becomes clean, and once we put it into a kind of a centralized architecture, I mean, its users are going to be multifarious, and possibly it will be, to my mind, a different generation of the eGov reform in terms of having a biometric-based, unique citizen database. I mean, it will be the mother of all the reforms that you need in terms of citizen service deliveries, in trying to ensure that the right benefit goes to the eligible beneficiaries, and it does not pass over to the people who are not eligible.
And just add that the very fact so many departments are using the database is also helping clean economy.
Exactly.
Validating it.
Exactly. It's a very live database, and I mean, 3 months down the line, once it's purified, it will be well enabled. I mean, citizens can just go to the website and verify their individual details and names. And exactly. Yes. And in fact, in future also, all our future enrollments also will be doing through eSeva only. That decision also has been taken. that in future also we'll be deploying an iris camera in the e-seva centers. So the moment an individual and goes from a particular place and wants to migrate his ration card, he just goes to the e-seva center, gives his iris image and authenticates himself. And once he does that, his card will be migrated from, say, a location A to a location B directly into the centralized database. I mean, this exactly is going to be the scheme of things once this database gets beautified in the next 3 months.
Honestly, as long as AP government or anybody doesn't come out with a card, another card, I think this would be a success. I think we have come out with too many cards.
In fact, to be very honest, yeah. In fact, I was just talking to somebody. Do we need a smart card after this? I mean, what we feel is that you don't need a smart card because every individual will be a smart card. Because an individual needs to go to a ration shop, gives his iris, and the iris camera there records his iris, and that itself is a smart card for him. And once he records and authenticates with the iris information that's there in that particular reader, the ration can be delivered straight away. So I mean, technically it does away with the requirement of any smart card. You just need to have a number if you need to have, but technically your individual identity in itself is a smart card, as far as I understand. It's already built in. The smart card is there right in your eye. So you just need to go and give it at the relevant location.
Thanks, Mr. Judge.